The apocalypse looks different in many different places. Some worlds got zombies, others have nukes, some get a super winter, others get aliens. This world is a mix of a few of those, but in a way we haven't really seen before. Today we're gonna go over a bunch of sorta science-related things when we talk about ZZZ's Hollows, which lead to my main theory. The Hollows might be alive, and the two new characters might give us evidence for it. But if you're new, what even is a Hollow? Zenless Zone Zero's whole premise revolves around zones called Hollows. The world was completely messed up by them, and now Hollows dot the surface of the earth like a bad case of acne before prom night. So what do? Well, they break the rules. Hollows are spatial distortions that mess with the environment and living creatures inside. And in this weird case, we're counting robots as living. If it's organic or has some kind of smart code, it can get corrupted. Corrupted stuff develops weird crystals, and living beings end up with a core where their head was. It's a super rough way to go. But what's causing this corruption in the Hollows? Well, that's the super neat, totally not magic element called ether. Ether is everywhere, even outside of the Hollows. Everyone's born with it, and some people have a better tolerance than others. Hollows are anomalies with super duper dense ether concentrations. So when these Hollows show up, if you're slow to evac or are really just not built for it, you're probably screwed. Now, do we know how the Hollows pop up? Not really. We know of a handful of huge old Hollows called the 6 Great Hollows, and the oldest of them, which is Hollow Zero. ZZZ's city of New Eridu is super close to Hollow Zero because the OG Eridu was built around Hollow Zero. Before the start of the game, it went nuclear and ate a good chunk of the city. Before you ask, we still don't really know what happened there. What we do know is that Hollows pop up in areas around the 6 Greater Hollows. Since they're newer and smaller, they're known as companion Hollows to the main ones. So for an in-game example, the Ballet Twins Hollow is a companion of Cretan from the 6 Great Hollows. But that, and they sometimes inherit features from the Great Hollow they're related to, like the Pale Wasteland. There are also 2 other Hollow cases we know of that are a little closer to the real apocalypse part of all this. The moon's f***ed up. Look at that up there. It's a whole dark wall of Hollows. That is all hollow. And you know what? We got one of those on Earth too. There's a dark wall super hollow somewhere further out from the city, and it's probably taken up most of the planet. We don't really do much with the dark wall yet. We don't see it or interact with it. But we do know that the Falkenhayn mercenary group pushed it back 37 kilometers. They pushed the dark wall back by 22 miles by themselves. Some people are built different, but these guys are actual monsters. Now that we've had this whole crash course on Hollows, what could possibly make them alive? They only corrupt living things and they pop up every now and then. There's no real indicator of them being alive, right? Well, the 2.0 season storyline has given us little bits and pieces of info about the Hollows, most specifically with how we go through the Lemnian Hollow, one of the 6 Greats. We learn about the weird ether goop it has called miasma. And this stuff makes you feel like you're back in the summer of 2016 with that one bird cooing in the sunset. It makes you hallucinate good memories and not want to leave the Hollow. But this is apparently something unique to this Great Hollow, and only recently started up in Hollow Zero when the Lemnian Hollow started getting more active. So there's a connection here, but what is it? While we don't know exactly what could be going on with the Hollows, we've gotten some new characters that are both pretty directly tied to the Hollows themselves. And I was able to pull both of these characters thanks in part to today's sponsor. If you've thought about breaking your free-to-play streak for a totally legitimate, understandable reason, wait a minute. LD Shop is a safe and much cheaper way to get some of those precious polychrome when your game has run as dry as mine has. Did I mention cheaper? There are thousands of good reviews. It's not just for ZZZ either. All the other major games are here. Topping up is really easy. All you need is your UID and region, and once you check out, it'll show up on your game ASAP. If you still have the first time bonus, that'll count too once you purchase. If you want the secret to getting it even cheaper, all you need to do is sign up with my link, also in the description, to get up to 30% off your first order. And if you spend more than $80 in a month, you get an Internet membership for free as a VIP bonus. So thanks LD Shop for supporting the channel and for the rolls. Now from here going forward, I'm going to give you a spoiler warning because we're going to go over what happens in Season 2 as well as what happens in Yidhari and Lucia's character stories. So, on Yidhari, she's the main damsel in distress of 2.3, and there's a ton of wonky stuff going on with her from jump. She's one of the members of Spook Shack, and we ended up finding her in a spooky shack. There is a lot to unpack in this interaction, but we'll fast forward through some major points in her story. She's got some weird curse that doesn't let her leave the Hollow, even though we freed her. So to figure it out, we get some help from Krampus and their tech, and it turns out Yidhari is the nucleus of a city in the Hollow. So how does that even happen, right? Yidhari's got an ability to see and project visions of the past in a Hollow, and she was tricked by Sarah to project a whole town. Sarah then trapped her here like betrayed Goku in the time chamber. If that wasn't enough, people that stumbled in here were at risk of getting corrupted. So, in an effort to save them, it looks like Yidhari subconsciously cocooned them. So if the cocoons get busted or Yidhari leaves the Hollow, the people inside immediately turn into ethereals. So of course, we end up helping her out, she leaves the Hollow, and yippee, we're good, right? Turns out, the ability Yidhari has is super bad for her brain. I mean, it's fine, right? Like, it's nothing therapy can't fix. So she goes to therapy, and in one of her perfectly normal sessions, she falls into a coma. So, event time, we dream dive and help her process trauma because that's something we can do. I won't go into huge detail here, but we learn how she probably got her power. Around the fall of the old capital, she was on the brink of full corruption. But her scientist parents gave her an experimental booster shot that saved her life. So why do we need to know this? Well, Yidhari's story exposes some huge things about the Hollows. First off, her ability requires her to be in a Hollow, a place with super concentrated ether. We know Miasma is able to interact with memories, and like an Uno reverse card, Yidhari can see the memory of the Hollow. More than this, once she was hooked up to the Hollow via the weird Miasma vines, she had some kinda influence on what went down there. Subconsciously, she was able to save people and keep herself from leaving so they would stay safe. She was also chill with the Wandering Hunter, who would just kinda carry her back if she tried to leave and hook her up to the group. So not only are Hollows capable of recording events that happen inside them, there are ways for people to influence how stuff happens in them. Yidhari was sorta like a Minecraft admin for a bit. Weird, right? Weirder still, she was only able to be broken free by Phaethon, who she sees very differently. The proxies are the only people she knows are real, and she can tell that by their eyes. So now that we've gone over Yidhari, the next weirdo on the list is Lucia. And I use weirdo very literally. Lucia is obsessed with ethereals, and isn't really scared of them at all. But how the hell is she able to get so close to them and not get turned into lamp chops? We learned some of it in the main story, but her agent story is what does the heavy lifting. Lucia's a nomad from a tribe called the Night Watchers, and they're not from the city or the Outer Ring. The Night Watchers are also weird because they're nocturnal, and they don't get targeted by ethereals. You heard that right. In Night Watcher history, their ancestors fought some bugging ethereal called the Night Horror. This Night Horror exploded when it lost and cursed the tribe. If they fall asleep, they start sleepwalking into Hollows, and since they're asleep, they'll just sit there until they corrupt. The exchange, though, is that none of them are targeted by ethereals. Ethereals are like yellow mobs for Night Watchers. So if that's all of them, then what is weird about Lucia specifically? Well, she's the chosen of the Night Watchers, and was given this super ancient important artifact to prove it, which is the staff that she uses when she fights. This is also probably an ancient W engine, since it seems to be based on a ring staff held by monks called a Kakara. Liara. So between the super special staff and her copy of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, she's able to mold the ether around her into illusions of ethereals. She knows ethereals inside and out and just has the illusions repeat their attack patterns. Which, not for nothing, is pretty damn similar to the way I spoke about how the projection archetype works in this video way back from 2.0. Wink, wink. Watch and subscribe, wink. But back on track, through Lucia's agent story, we meet a friendly ethereal she named Chestnut. It's a smaller than usual hottie that is totally chill with people and even helps people out of the hollow. Lucia had dreams about the night horror giving her Chestnut, and also knew that Chestnut was in trouble. People were tailing it in the hollow to try and catch it. After some exposition and gameplay, yada yada yada, the other Night Watcher is a bad guy. Oh no! What's crazy here though, is at the end, Lucia actually summons more ethereals. Even the bad guy starts freaking out about it. She has no idea how she did it either. Just says something like, "It felt like the hollow let me do it." So strike 2 on someone getting temporary admin access to the hollow. So between Yidhari and Lucia, we've got 2 cases of a hollow having some kind of intelligence. Yidari's weird drowned ideal voice and the admin access she got from the miasma, and Lucia getting pet dogs from ethereal Darkrai. What they strangely have in common though, is the protection of life, even from corruption. So the hollows are good? Nah, I don't think the hollows themselves are good, but we still need to check the first box from the video. Are the hollows themselves alive? There might be something to it. First of all, when it comes to the creation of hollows, they seem to just pop out of nowhere, right? But in reality, they're linked to a parent hollow, and sometimes inherit the traits of that parent hollow. I was talking to Azrael about this for a bit, another great Zenless content creator that you should subscribe to, and while I was gonna say they're kind of like mold, he made the much cooler and better analogy of saying they're like flowers, which, let's remember how much flower imagery we see in-game, even in the hollows. Hell, even Nineveh is a giant flower kaiju kind of thing. And it also has its own breed of flower that exclusively grows in the hollows. We've also seen Internet posts about flowers in the Time-Sworn Hills, and then there's Seed Flora, and her name, and the list goes on and on and on. So if ether is everywhere in the air, and hollows are dense in ether, and companion hollows can inherit traits from parent hollows, we can think of the ether almost like pollen, right? What we still don't know is what the bud is. But let's say there's a missing piece present in the area with a lot of pollen, it absorbs a bunch of it and blooms into a hollow. Or the hollows kind of show up around dense ether in the right condition, like mold spores. Then there's the matter of what's inside the hollows. We know there's a bunch of Scooby-Doo type monsters in there that want to eat your face, but let's think of this in a different way. So let's say the hollows are alive. They work in the same way lots of living things do already. Firstly, how they grow. Hollows constantly expand by consuming mostly organic matter, which is one of the biggest issues with a hollow disaster. Space-time in hollows is messed up, and the area inside has weird stuff happening, like the spawning of ethereals and the crystallization of the environment, and minor stuff. But if the hollow is a living thing slash body, the ethereals would kinda be like white blood cells eliminating foreign threats. The crystallization effect seems to be a byproduct of the digestion of the organic matter or internal ether of things. Now, taking it a step further, remember how some hollows are different because of the parent hollow? Well, if we get the miasma from the Lemnian hollow and look at it through the living hollow lens, this seems to be more like an adaptation to lure in prey for growth, like one of those pitcher plants for bugs. Pitcher plants are carnivorous plants that work kinda like a pitfall trap, but they lure in bugs with sweet nectar. The miasma in the Lemnian hollow is really similar, except it goes straight to the brain and makes you feel like Jane Doe actually does have your number and loves you, so you never want to leave. There's a good chance the other great hollows have some similar gimmick, but of course some things in hollows don't get corrupted or crystallized, mainly inorganic stuff. But one thing we know wasn't getting corrupted was flowers. Seed survived off eating flowers after the fall of the old capital until she was found. Weird how that works out, right? So if the Great Hollows keep spawning more hollows, what spawned the Great Hollows? This one's scary. So it's probably Hollow Zero, but it could also be the Dark Wall. Hollow Zero also has had miasma found in it, which points to it being the Granddaddy Hollow, but this leaves one really scary detail unexplained. What about the Dark Wall, dude? Unless we figure out how to manage it better than throwing Alicia XPs at it, humanity is unbelievably cooked. I would guess Helios was at the forefront of that, with how Seed and the Proxies worked out in their ether weirdness. But two wimpy nerds and a little girl piloting a murder bot aren't really gonna solve this issue, are they? So do I think the Hollows are alive? Honestly, yeah. But of the few elements we're missing, two major ones stick out. First of them being blooming. We still don't know exactly what causes a companion hull to pop up or bloom. What I'm realizing way too late too, Vivian's ether reaction is called a bloom. It's a weird place for it to show up. But back to the point, we still don't know what is the exact cause of the Hollows showing up, but my one guess ties both points together. The next point that we don't know is rationale. So most of the time we're in Hollows, it's pretty simple, right? Things show up to kill us, we kill them back. It's like ether whack-a-mole. But now we're seeing that other Hollows have a reason to coexist with or preserve uncorrupted human life, like in Yidhari and Lucia's stories. So how do these tie together? Well, what if the blooming is dependent on a host? The Hollow spawns around them to protect the host from the ether mismatch. So each of the Hollows would have a main ethereal. Well, now let's look at the weird stuff with Lemnian and how they talk about the creator and the night horror. If each Hollow has a host monster, the great Hollows in Hollow Zero, old as they are, could have ethereals that seem divine. They'd be super ancient and have been gobbling up ether for God knows how long. On top of this, what if the hosts were human? They'd almost be like natural born sacrifices and be able to think for themselves. Seems a lot like the night horror and the creator, right? If they're not one and the same. Now on those two, I know we're going to be seeing the creator soon, apparently. But would it be the big bad, or would it be one of the 6 major Hollow hosts? The Lemnian Hollow is where all of this is happening, as well as the first of the 6 greats that we're going into directly and not through a companion Hollow. The main issue with that is Bringer said he saw the creator and was healed in what is likely a companion to Cretan. So most of this goes out the window if they're the same entity. And the healing and corruption reversal is definitely a point for another time. So to TLDR it, Hollows might be alive and linked to hosts like etheric parasitic plants. Yidhari and Lucia are weird, and ancient Hollow bosses could be the next level of threat we need to face in the Great Hollows. Now, what do you think about all this? Do you think we're actually going to see the big bad creator soon? I'm not too sure about it. But if you enjoyed this or learned something, as always, it helps out to like and subscribe. Remember, we've got the Discord, this YouTube channel, and I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. But I hope everyone has a great day, week, month, year, and I will see you next time.